Hey everybody, Riot Mort here and back with another patch rundown. This is the patch 14.9 rundown. So last patch was our patch where we buffed a lot of the forecasts, kind of reevaluated how our framework worked there. And it worked in the sense that forecasts are meta now, and it's an endgame meta for sure. But we did have to B-patch because it was a little off right of the way. After the B-patch, it ended up a little better, but if you were a big fan of reroll, it's been pretty miserable. And then the other big news story is with everybody playing forecasts, there have been a lot of 3-star forecasts, much more than we're comfortable with. So a lot of the changes in here are meant to help other lines get up to that level of something like Ashe and to prevent so many 3-star forecasts. As well as the other big news of this patch is it's long awaited all the new artifact items. So let's jump right in. There's a lot to go over. Here we go. All right, so first off, as I mentioned, 3-star forecasts have got a little out of control, and so we're making some changes here to try to address them. Now, you might be wondering, why are they changing so many things? And the reality is, everything that's part of the problem has to be changed a little. It's not one thing we can kick in the teeth. Everything kind of needs a little bit of a slight slap. So player damage is going up in stage 4, 5, and 6. This is to apply more pressure, force you to roll down before you can just hold a bunch of gold and get those 3-star forecasts. We didn't want to apply it to stage 2 and 3. Sometimes stage 2 especially, you don't have a ton of control over the game, so losing a bunch of health when you feel helpless feels really bad. But we did want to focus that on 4, 5, and 6. So there you go. Shop odds. This is another one where at level 8, we're lowering forecasts a tiny bit here. We don't want you 3-starring forecasts at level 8. That's supposed to happen at level 9. This is where you 2-star your forecasts and then go to level 9 is usually the play here. So that's just going to go down 2%. And then level 9, if you do get there and have a ton of gold, it's just way too easy to hit. So forecast odds are going down here. So they're going down 5%, which is a pretty big chunk actually. So you're going to see less, hopefully, 3-star forecasts from level 9. And then the last little bit is, again, to apply more pressure, maybe make you stay at level 8, not go to 9 as much, level 8 to 9 is going up 8 gold. Level 9 to 10 is actually going down 4 gold. And the idea here is like, hey, maybe instead of just sitting there re-rolling on 9, you actually consider going to 10. So hopefully all of these help with that problem a little bit. And then for you double up players, double up especially was like the most egregious version of this. For those of you that play double up, there are 3-star 4 costs and 5 costs in almost every lobby. So we made some changes to player damage. There's going to be a lot more power and aggression early on in double up. Player damage is going up, from 2, 5, 6, 8, 11, 17 to 3, 6, 8, 10, 12. Gets a little bit closer to live. And again, much more early game pressure. The other thing here is that player damage is now rounded up. This should make it so if you take like 5 damage, which would have been rounded before to 2.5, now you just take the 3. So that will be extra player damage as well. And then the last thing is just a quality of life thing, where if you've been playing double up and like 5 seconds into the fight, it feels like all of a sudden you're getting reinforced because somebody open forted. At least now you have some time to actually fight your own battle. So the reinforcement time minimum is going from 7 to 12. We actually think the right number might be around 15, but we wanted to kind of gradually edge it up a little bit here. So if this still feels a little too quick, we'll make it go to 15 seconds. But for now, it is 12. So hopefully a little love for double up players in the meantime. All right, encounters. Encounters are also part of the problem to some extent of 3-star forecasts. And so we're making some adjustments here. Ari, the one that just gave you 15 health. 15 health can buy you a lot of time to econ and greed. We're going to lower that to 10. Aurelia, this is one of the more annoying ones where it would give you 6 shops of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cost shop. And man, if you got lucky and hit a 2-star 5 cost in those shops, you were very powerful. And if you didn't, you were very sad. So we're lowering it to 3 shops. That way the odds of you actually getting a 2-star in 3 shops are pretty low, but it'll still give you some access to those 5 costs you might not normally have. All right, encounters. The following encounters will appear more often. Kane, the 5-4 death game. And so, there are a lot of people who have talked about how they've played 100, maybe 200 games and not seen this encounter. We didn't drastically increase the odds. It went from, in our code, I won't explain how it works, but it went from a 1.0 to a 1.5. So it's not a huge adjustment, but hopefully a few people actually get to experience this before the end of the set. And then the other one is Ornn. This is the choose an artifact one. With all the new artifacts coming out, having an encounter that happens a little more often. And again, same thing, 1.0 to 1.5. Nothing too crazy. But that'll happen a little more often. Now, on the flip side, encounters that are happening a little too often, we're going to change from 1.0 to 0.5 in our code. So these will happen about half as often as before. Cho'Gath, the one where you trade shop slots for components. This one's pretty tricky, and it's an interesting encounter, but man, sometimes you're just in the wrong spot for it, so going to have that a little less often. Diana Salvage Bin one. This encounter almost close to does nothing most of the time, and so it's just not really a fun one to have appear, so we're going to have that show up less often. The Aurelia Free Move Carousel one, where everyone just all of a sudden moves. Yeah. And then these ones are Nico, the Lesser Duplicator Carousel, Teemo, the Spatula Carousel, and Wukong, the Radiant Item Carousel. Those will appear less often as well. And the Wukong Radiant Item Carousel can't appear on Stage 2 anymore. So for those of you that had a game where it was just like, surprise, the person at 85 health gets their first pick of Radiant items, that is less likely to happen. And then finally, the following encounters have been removed. So the Kha'Zix one, where you lower XP cost for 3 turns, has been removed. This one, man, if you were in the right position for it, it was a lot of power. And if you weren't, it felt bad. Now, keep in mind, this is only the 3 turns one. The one that says apply to the rest of the game, still in there. That one still exists. And then again, to address the 3-star 4 cost problem, Cho'Gath, the one where it gives you 2 lesser dupes or 1 greater dupe, that one's gone. The Nico that gives you the greater duplicators on Carousel, that one's gone. And then the Syndra one that gives you a 2-star 4 cost on Carousel, that one was very swingy as well. That one's gone. So those encounters are no longer there. All right, on the balance side, Arcanists 6 and 8 still haven't really found their spot. They get more AP. Cool. Dryad. The difference between Dryad 4 and Dryad 6 is massive. If you get mulched or a Dryad emblem, your average placement shoots up way too much. So Dryad 6 is getting nerfed a bit. Less health per stack, less AP. No nerfs to 2 or 4 Dryad, just 6. Duelist, 4 and 6 in the mid game is okay, but even not as good as it should be. And if you don't have the +1, you basically can't play this trait. Fixing that a little bit by giving Duelist 4 and 6 a little love. Okay, Fated. This one's a weird one, and I want you to look at this, but this is probably a nerf. There were 2 bugs with Set's Omnivamp. The first was that he could Omnivamp off of things like Sunfire, Ionic Spark, as Leduc reported. The part of the bug he didn't report is that it was also vamping pre-mitigation. So, for example, if you were hitting, an Ornn with a bunch of items, you were still vamping for the full amount. That is a lot of power. We fixed that bug. The vamp will now work on the correct amount, but that is going to be a big nerf to things like the Aphelios reroll comp that can't vamp as much. As such, we did buff up the Omnivamp back up a bit, but it will be worse. It will be significantly worse. You're not going to get that pre-mitigation Omnivamp. So, all right, Fortune. 7 Fortune, we're glad people had fun with it, but now it's time to be real. 7 Fortune is very easy to hit, not just on the Trainer Sentinels portal, but even just in general. If you hit 7 Fortune, it was way too easy to just win the game. And you could hit it on like 3-2 on a good game. So we are hitting this really hard. Now, I will say from PBE testing, it still kind of wins games, but not in such an overwhelming fashion that you just guarantee the best cash outs in the game. So the bonus stacks are going from 25 to 12, very large nerf. And the bonus orb you get every turn, we cut the value of that in half as well. So again, 7 Fortune, not going to be as insane a high roll, but this is an example of like making a high roll that's a little more accessible. We didn't want to change that. And then the last thing is we went through the Fortune table, made some adjustments to some of the cash outs, especially at the higher end, ones that didn't quite feel as good. So if you hit that like 160 to 240 range now, there's a few new ones in there that should replace some of the old lame ones, as well as we did some readjustments. Those tables will be out a little later, but mostly just the higher end cash outs. You're not going to see any crazy adjustments to like 30 to 100 or anything like that. Heavenly. Heavenly gets our big rework this trait, or this patch. And the way it works is it no longer scales with unit star levels. So A Nico, for example, is giving HP, no matter what her star level is, it's the same amount. In addition, it now gives 70% more stats to Heavenly units. So if you want to play Heavenly Soraka, Heavenly Wukong, Heavenly Kha'Zix, these should feel like a buff. These champions will be stronger than they were on live. They'll feel pretty good. But as you see, the baseline went down quite a bit, and the baseline Omnivamp goes down as well. So this means things like Heavenly Kayn, Heavenly Lee Sin, those are being nerfed so that the Heavenly units themselves can be buffed. Now, it's not zero. It works very much like Guild did back in the day. So you can still play Heavenly Kayn. It's just Kayn's not going to benefit quite as much. Or if you get a Heavenly Emblem, the emblem actually matters now. So Heavenly Kayn with a Heavenly Emblem will get a 70% boost, which is pretty good. Storyweaver's been really struggling, especially at 5 and 7. 5 and 7 gets a buff to the on-hit damage. You get that on-hit damage no matter which color you are, so this is a buff to every Kale. And then Red Kale is getting a buff to the Scroll of Haste. I believe that's the 5 one. So more attack speed per auto. Do I think this is going to make Storyweaver meta? We'll see. My guess is no, but we'll see. That the on-hit damage is a very big buff. I do want you to notice like 40 to 45 is more than a 10% buff, which is a pretty big swing to Kale's auto attack damage. So do consider that, but we'll see how it works out. And then Umbral. Umbral is a trait that has been struggling a bit. It probably will still struggle, but wanted to take a big swing to try to help it a little bit. It's more of a Band-Aid. I'm not expecting this to all of a sudden be meta or anything, but 6 Umbral gets another 5% on the execute, and if you somehow hit 9 Umbral, screw it, 60% execute. I mean, you just got to hit them for 40% of their health. If you do, they'll disappear. That's a lot of power there. Hopefully 9 Umbral will function. So does Umbral need more than this? Maybe, but this is what you'll get for now. All right, champ side. Darius openers are very good. They'll still be very good. We're just lowering it a tiny amount. So the spin will still do the same amount. It's just the on-hit damage afterwards is going down. Again, I think Darius is still going to be one of the better openers, if not the best. Kog'Maw has definitely fallen off in the current meta. Kog'Maw is getting some love back. He'll do extra damage at 2 and 3 star, so reroll Kog'Maw, hopefully coming back. Riven, don't sleep on this buff. This is a very large buff. Riven, I know this confuses a lot of people, but Riven is meant to be a carry, not a tank. She's meant to be the Bloodthirster Titans kind of user, the Sterix user. This is a big buff to her ability damage, so don't sleep on reroll Riven as an option. Hopefully this makes her good. Get some Altruist in. She'll do that extra healing as well. So Riven can do some damage, but it's only going to feel like a buff if you actually itemize her. If she's just the itemless trait bot in Storyweaver, she's not doing much. So Alune can do plenty of damage with Invoker, but she's really reliant on that Invoker. Giving her some attack speed will help her out. Hopefully makes Alune a 3-cost carry that you can play around. Bard definitely has fallen off since his glory days of the first patch, where he was the hot thing to complain about. He's going to get 5 more AD to his auto attacks. That should help. Tristana, similar things. I don't think this is going to magically make Tristana meta or anything, but Tristana is going to get 5 AD. And weirdly enough, her ability, so her 5 AD base, her ability is going to grant less AD, so it's less reliant on that ability proccing. And then her ability itself had a weirdly high AP ratio, which meant if you weren't itemizing her properly, she wasn't doing as much damage. So we're buffing the AD part and lowering the AP part so that she can really focus on those AD items like Deathblade, IE, stuff like that. Again, I don't think Tristana is a major factor here, but this should help Duelist a little bit combined with that 4 and 6. Volibear, just giving him a little bit of his healing back after the Titans nerf. We don't plan on redoing Titans right now, but Volibear should get a little bit of healing. And then Zoe's another 3-cost that just hasn't quite had her time to shine. So she gets some more ability power and ricochet damage as well. Again, I don't think this is going to radically swing things, but we want to buff small at a time so we don't just all of a sudden have a Zoe meta or something. We'll see. All right, on the 4-cost side, Kayn definitely one of the stronger of the 4 and 5 costs, and for some reason has 70 armor and MR. We tried to give him to help him survive. Well, he's surviving. He's doing just fine. So he's going to lose 10 armor and MR, which will make him less tanky. Morgana gets some changes here. Morgana 3, definitely one of the weaker 3-star 4 costs. That damage is going up pretty significantly here, so if she can't kill with that, what are you going to do? And then Morgana is now more likely to cast her ability at clumps of enemies. The way she used to work was she would randomly pick 2 targets and then pick which one was in the largest clump. Now she picks like 4 targets and picks which one is in the largest clump. So she should be more likely to hit things in an AoE and not miss as much. Syndra gets 1 more starting orb at 1 and 2 star to help her out. Should make Syndra on par with some of the other 4-cost carries and not kind of the weak link. And then Lysandra, certainly the hot topic right now that everyone's pretty frustrated with. Gets out pretty light, honestly, for this patch. She loses 100 health. She kind of got overbuffed on the health side of things. And she's going to drop loot a little less often, goes from 50 to 40. Does she still need more than this? Possibly. This is what we're doing for this patch. But we will evaluate. She is a very overloaded kit. She does a lot of things. So it is possible 1 or 2 of those might need to be removed in the future. All right, new support items. There are 5 new support items that you can find if you play something like, the augment that gives them or hit any of the portals. There are 5 new choices. Eternal Flame. Every 5 seconds, all enemies are 33% wounded, and all allies deal 7% more damage. So you need to keep the Eternal Flame alive if you put it on a backliner. But if you do, there's your anti-heal and some extra damage. Now notice it's not burn, it's just the wound. So you get the anti-heal there. Knight's Vow grants health and Omnivamp to people in the front row. Really good for like Kayn in the front line, Lee Sin, stuff like that. Really good for frontliners. Moonstone Renewer. Every 4 seconds, shield the 2 lowest percent health allies for some extra power. Can keep them alive. Also works pretty well on frontliners. If you're running put this with a ghostly comp, it'll keep the Kayn alive. Cool. And then my 2 favorites here. I really like these ones. Spite. When this unit dies, reduce the attack damage and ability power of enemy units within 2 hexes by 40% for 10 seconds. And allies within the explosion range gain 20% AD and AP for the same duration. So if you really want to make a Kayn stop doing less damage, have him kill somebody with Spite, and for 10 seconds he loses 40% of his power. So pretty cool. Really good way to slow down other people's damage. Really good anti-duelist, for example. And then the other one I really like, this one's pretty fun. I'm not going to claim it's powerful, but it's fun, is Unstable Treasure Chest. When the holder dies, grant 3 completed items to nearby allies. And so you can put this on a frontliner, they'll die, and then give some items to your backliners or other carries. Pretty cool. Again, I'm not claiming it's powerful, but it's fun. So if it ends up being weak, we can buff it, make it 4 items, 5 items, but it's pretty cool to see the items pop out and land on people. So fun stuff. All right. 20 new artifacts. I'm going to go through these pretty quick, but we have 20 new artifacts, new things to play. Now, our goal with these artifacts is that with the core item system, over time, we've had to make the items more generic so that they can be pretty flexible, right? This is like Bloodthirster, for example, getting AP and AD, so you can use it on Silas or Lee Sin, and so items have become pretty generic. And we wanted a space where we could take items and instead go, no, these are much more unique. These are interesting outputs and transform characters into cool new ways to play them so that we still have a space to do that while keeping the core item system relatively flexible. And so a lot of these items are designed to maybe only be good on 1 or 2 champions per set, but do that in a really cool way that transform them into fun things they might not normally do. So we have Suspicious Trenchcoat. Generally gives some health and attack speed, and then when they hit 50% health, they split into 3 copies of themselves, each with 33% health. So pretty cool on frontline, can do some interesting things with other combinations of items. That's a neat one. Talisman of Ascension. This one's, a lot of people have been having fun with this. It gives health, AD, and AP. After 18 seconds, double that health and do 150% increased damage for the rest of combat. So if you can keep them alive, they become an unkillable machine. Pretty cool. I've seen a lot of cool versions of this one. Unending Despair. Health and armor. Whenever a shield on the holder breaks, 100% shield initial value is dealt to the nearest enemy as magic damage. So if you have somebody with a big shield that pops quick, say like imagine a Galio 3 with this. A Galio 3 with this, that shield breaks and then pop hits the enemy for like 2,000 health. So that's pretty fun. That one's not particularly powerful, but again, the right combination it can be. Light Shield Crest, high armor and MR, and if you give even more armor and MR, every 3 seconds shields the lowest percent health ally for 50% of the holder's combined armor and MR. And then on death, grants the shield to all allies. And the shield lasts forever, so you can kind of stack it up. It's pretty neat. Innervating Locket. This one's really powerful on 3-star tanks. If you see a 3-star tank with this, be afraid. The holder gains 2% of their total mana whenever they're hit by an attack. So if you want them casting their spell a lot, this one's really good. And then each cast restores 20% of the holder's max health over 3 seconds. I had a really good game with Diana 3 with this that no one could really take down, and it hasn't been nerfed since then. It's very good on 3-star tanks. So if you can get this on a 3-star tank, look out. Prowler's Claw, AD and crit. After killing the target, shed all negative effects. So if you're like burned or wound, anti-healed, gone. Dash to the farthest enemy within 4 hexes, and your next 2 critical attacks deal 60% bonus critical strike damage. Very good with Kayn. Very good with champs like Lee Sin, can be fun with it. So pretty cool. Can make those characters feel more assassin-y. Mittens. I love this one. The tiny little mittens. It's even adorable how small the icon is. Shrinks the holder, granting them increased movement speed, 20% damage reduction, and immunity to chill. Very good on frontliners. Imagine a Lee Sin with this. You get 60% attack speed, 20% DR, and you can't be chilled. So pretty good. Rapid Fire Cannon. It's back. It's an artifact. It's even stronger than it was before. It's 50% attack speed, gain 1 range, and then anytime you kill somebody, gain another range. Probably my favorite one I've seen with this is Kiana. You know, she can get that +1 range, and then that keeps going, and by the end, you're throwing discs all over the map. Pretty fun. Horizon Focus. This one gives health, mana, armor, and MR. Stunning an enemy causes lightning to strike them, dealing 30% of their max health as magic damage. It's supposed to be really good on champs like Nautilus, gives them tanky stats, and then makes their stun also do damage. One other one that's okay with this is Lux, although now the item doesn't give any AP. So it's not quite as good as it was with Lux as it was on PBE. If we have to in the future, we'll consider adding a can only proc on each enemy once per fight clause if we have to. But for now, consider it on champs like Lux and Nautilus. That's who it's intended on. Forbidden Idol. Health, armor, MR. Shields have 50% of their value converted to max health. Really good with like the Garen Hero Augment or Tom Kench. If you shield yourself for 400... Instead, you shield yourself for 200 and gain 200 permanent health. If you can have a way to get that back with things like Redemption, you can end up very powerful. Tom Kench is especially strong because his shield is relative to his health. So the more health you gain, the shield gets bigger, repeat, scales ad nauseum. So pretty powerful if you can get that going. Silvermere Dawn. This one's an interesting one. 165 AD, which is massive. That's an insane amount of AD. 50 armor, 50 MR. So just a ton of stats on this thing. And you gain immunity to stun. So that's cool. And every auto stuns them for 0.8 seconds. So you walk up with a very slow auto and you go donk and it hits really hard and they're stunned. And then you do it again. The problem is your attack speed is now locked at 0.5. You cannot make it faster. Which means every 2 seconds, donk. Donk. Like it is the slowest attack speed. But it hits really hard. It's pretty fun. Really good on an off-tank. It's a really good off-tank item. So, Seeker's Arm Guard. Takedowns. So it gives 25 AD, or 25 AP, armor, and MR. Takedowns increase the holder's armor, MR, and ability power by 10. Increase to 15 if they score the kill. Really good on someone like Silas. This will just help him get bigger and bigger as the fight goes on. Blighted Jewel. 40 AP. Dealing magic damage reduces the target's magic resist by 3. If their magic resist is 0, this grants the holder 5 mana instead. Very good on dot champions. This is designed to be the dot AP caster item. So obviously that means like Teemo and Morgana are the biggest benefactors. If you can get a Teemo with this, it can do some work. It has been nerfed since PBE, but it's still a very good item. Corrupted Vamp Scepter. Attacks deal an additional 50% AD, and you get 50% attack speed as physical damage, and heal the holder. So this is going to give you a bunch of attack speed, attack damage, and Omnivamp, essentially. But you can't cast your spell anymore. So if you're somebody who likes to cast spells, it's a bad item. But, there are champions in previous sets that have been very good with this. Someone like Vayne, for example. But on this set, Aurelia's pretty good with it. I've seen Gnar do pretty well with it. So there's some options out there. Consider it. Spectral Cutlass. This is a weird one, but definitely can be scary. Combat start, teleport the holder to the mirrored hex on the enemy side of the board. 40 AD, 20 crit. After 8 seconds, you go back. So if you wanted to, for example, put this on a Lee Sin, put him in your back right corner, he'll teleport to their back right corner, punch him around for a few seconds, and then get out of there. So kind of a little bit of a return to Assassins here with this item. Lichbane. The holder's first attack after each ability cast deals bonus damage, and this bonus damage goes up as time goes on. This is basically a blue buff user item, so Kindred's good with this, Teemo's good with this. Anyone with that low mana cost is going to be very good. Luden's Tempest. 30 AD, 30 AP. 100% of overkill damage plus 100 is dealt as magic damage to the 3 nearest enemies to the target. Now, the key with this one is you want to hit really hard. Caitlyn ult is a good example. So if Caitlyn ult hits for 2,000, well, then and let's say the person had 500 health, now you shoot 3 1,500 plus 100 bolts, so 1,600 bolts off to people. And here's the crazy part. If those kill someone, it chains. So if that one of those 1,600 hits somebody that 400 health, you now just got another 1,200 plus 100, so 1,300 times 3. This can do some wild stuff. I've seen it be very good on Lilia, Azir, Caitlyn. If you can get big damage on people, though, it can chain and do wild stuff. Wits End, attack speed, MR, attacks deal bonus damage. Very good for high attack speed champions. And it heals the holder for 35% of all magic damage dealt. Really good for like a frontline duelist. This can actually be good on like Volibear, Lee Sin, but also backliners like Bard. It doesn't proc on like trick shot bounce like it did during PvE, but still should be a decent item. Fishbones, this is a fun one. Doubles the holder's attack range and causes each of their autos to target a random enemy, gain some AD and attack speed. I love this on snipers. I won a game with it with Aphelios, and it hasn't been nerfed since then. So if you get like an Aphelios 3 with this, he'll just like randomly attack the backline and hit for max sniper damage, which can be really cool. And then finally, Cursed Blade. Cursed Blade is attack speed MR. Attacks reduce the target's max health by 3%. 13 attacks on the same target reduce their star level by 1. So if you have a super tank you're struggling with, someone has a Tahm Kench 3, hit them with this. And after a bunch of attacks, they'll shrink and shrink and shrink and eventually die. It's really good at killing super tanks. It's pretty bad otherwise. But so watch out for that. Or if you're struggling, if you know somebody's going to be forcing that, if that becomes meta, it's a good choice. And there you go. 20 new artifacts to play with. Let us know what you think. You'll get them when you get them. You're not expected to get them every game. They're still supposed to be as rare as artifacts are now, but they should be fun. Some other changes in this space. Blacksmith Gloves now grants 300 HP and 30% crit. It was weird that this didn't have any stats like Thieves Gloves and Support Gloves. So now it has stats. And it can give every artifact except for Corrupted Vamp Scepter. It cannot get Corrupted Vamp Scepter. You will not accidentally silence your own character. There you go. We did take out 2 artifacts. Goldmancer Staff and Mogul's Mail are now gone. Those are not part of the game anymore. We didn't need that many gold generation artifacts, so those are gone. Portable Forge Plus and Plus Plus have been disabled because Portable Forge is now always 4 choices again, even on 2-1, 3-2, 4-2. Doesn't matter. It's always 4 options. So, all right. Augment Balance. Over Encumbered. Really good silver. We're nerfing it a bit. You only get 1 bench slot. So if you want all those extra items, you got to basically play without a bench for an entire stage. Pumping Up just loses 2% base attack speed. Should still be fine. Triforce 1, if you want to play some 3 cost, they're going to get 50 extra health. Big Gains, an extra 20 health to get you started. Built Different, clearly one of the biggest benefactors of the 4 cost meta, is going to be nerfed at basically everything except the early game. And even the early game loses some attack speed. But you're going to see a lot less health on Built Different. Should bring that down. Call to Adventure, you're going to get more HP and AP per stack. Dragon's Spirit should be able to get you those item components quicker. You only need 7,000 instead of 8,000. Dynamic Duo is now get a 5 cost, a matching champ, and 20 gold. So very much a gold econ augment on 4-2. Learning to Spell gives you 8 more AP to get you started. Mind Over Matter has been re-enabled. And then Pandora's Items 2 now gives 2 random components instead of a random completed item. Raining Gold loses 1 gold. I guess you're raining a little less gold. Slammin' Plus, 2 less XP. Accomplice, 2 less gold. Build-A-Bud, 2 more gold. Call to Chaos. This is another one with high rolls. We're trying to balance the high rolls and low rolls. So 8 less gold from the gold drop. 6 less XP. But the 3-star 3 cost and 10 gold is now 20 gold. So that should feel like less of a low roll. Going Long gets 2 more gold. Infernal Contract. Salute to Infernal Contract. It was a fun augment in set 10. It wasn't a fun augment this set, actually. But being level 7 when level 10 exists, not very good. This augment has terrible stats and it's had terrible stats all set. Just going to get rid of it. All right, and then some small changes. Lilia 3 gets a buff. Lets her actually do some more damage to the backline. Lilia 3 gets some love. Ornn, we're nerfing Ornn 3-star from 8 items to 6 items because Ornn deserves it. And because the items are becoming radiant, which is a huge buff. So, if you can get Ornn 3, enjoy your 6 free radiant items every time he casts. Hopefully that should make him pretty exciting and pretty powerful. And then Silas 3 also gets a bit of love. Silas 3, another one underperforming a small amount, gets some love. Even though we want these to appear less often, we do still want them powerful and exciting. These give them those buffs. Augment Space. Generally, these are all buffs to underperforming crests and crowns. So Behemoth Crest goes from Thresh to Shen and Thresh. Dragonlord Crest goes from Diana to Janna and Diana. Makes these really good on 2-1. Grim Harvest goes from Kindred to Kha'Zix and Kindred. Sage Crest goes from Diana to Zyra and Diana. Storyweaver Crest gets back its Garen. Warden Crest goes from Amumu to Jackson Amumu. Behemoth Crown goes from Warmogs and Yorick to Sunfire, Yorick, and Thresh. And Sage Crown goes from Diana to Zyra and Diana. So Sage and Dragonlord also getting a lot of extra power in their augments there. And finally, bug fixes. Aurelia no longer triggers on-hit effects with every blade in her chain. She now only triggers on-hit effects on hits where she triggers on-attack effects. So that helps, basically kind of nerfs. I think the biggest one is the Ink Shadow item that she could do crazy things with. Mythic, Fated, and Ink Shadow emblems will no longer be offered without the trait active on 3-2 or 4-2. The Fortune Cash Out that gives +1 to all traits now shows up properly in the trait tracker. The Teemo Carousel encounter can no longer give a unit with 2 spatulas. Items can no longer be removed from a unit with a Masterwork Upgrade Armory open to prevent an item duplication glitch. Nautilus no longer sometimes casts his ability backwards. Nautilus can no longer fail to deal damage and knockup if he casts 2 times quickly. Azir can no longer spawn a permanent soldier if he casts as combat ends. Ornn items are no longer made permanent after combat ends in a tie. The augment prop now faces the correct direction. And Kane's ability no longer fizzles on cornered units. So there you go. It's a big patch. Should be a lot to play with. Like I said, my honest read is that honestly it's not going to change a ton. Hopefully more lines, but I do kind of expect it to still be a very late game centric meta. We'll have to see if I'm right. Again, some things here to help. We'll go from there. But we're also trying to not radically shift the meta anymore. We're also past the point, like this is kind of our last big patch. After a set launch. From here, it's going to be light balance changes, trying to get everything in the right spot where we want it to be. So, yeah. But this is a big patch. There's a lot of new fun stuff to play with, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. All right. That's going to do it for me. That's it for this patch rundown. Hope you enjoyed it. There's a lot. Nothing too crazy here. So, there you go. All right. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.